John Wayne Western Series, Part 2, From B-Movies to Big Roles. By the dawn of the 1940s, John Wayne had spent nearly a decade grinding through dusty B-movies, pumping out cowboy pictures that were more formula than film. He was a reliable workhorse actor, sure, but not yet a household name. Hollywood, meanwhile, was shifting. The cheap Depression-era westerns were fading, replaced by more ambitious productions with higher budgets, bigger stars, and richer stories. And here's where Wayne's story really changes. This was the decade where he went from being just another cowboy to one of Hollywood's defining icons. From Technicolor breakthroughs to war controversies, from studio politics to personal entanglements, the 1940s weren't just career-making, they were life-defining. But none of this came easily. Wayne's rise was messy, dramatic, and sometimes scandalous. And it all started with a Civil War Western that finally let him prove he wasn't just another face under a cowboy hat. Wayne's first big leap of the decade came with Dark Command, released in 1940, starring alongside Claire Trevor and Walter Pidgeon. Wayne played Bob Seaton, a schoolteacher turned lawman caught up in the chaos of Civil War Kansas. Unlike the cardboard cutout cowboys he'd played before, this role gave him real depth. He wasn't just firing off six-shooters or wrestling villains in a barroom brawl. He was driving the story, showing grit, humor, and moral weight. Audiences noticed. So did Hollywood insiders. Suddenly, Wayne wasn't just that guy from the cheap westerns. He was holding his own alongside respected actors. Dark Command was more than a western. It was Wayne's audition for stardom. And behind the scenes, Wayne knew it. He reportedly told friends after filming that for the first time, he felt like he belonged in the same league as Hollywood's top stars. That confidence would carry into his next game-changer. If Dark Command hinted at Wayne's potential, The Shepherd of the Hills confirmed it. Based on Harold Bell Wright's best-selling novel, this was Wayne's first Technicolor film, and it changed everything. Playing Matt Masters, Wayne delivered a performance full of rage, pain, and emotional conflict. He wasn't a clean-cut cowboy anymore. He was a man torn apart by family secrets and personal demons, and Technicolor made him look larger than life. His sheer physical presence, the towering frame, the sunburned skin, the blue eyes finally popped on screen. For many critics, this was the turning point. Wayne had range. He could play tortured, conflicted men instead of just straight-arrow heroes, and the box office backed it up. The Shepherd of the Hills proved Wayne wasn't just a B-movie survivor. He was a bankable star. Off-screen, Wayne was also changing. He'd married Josephine Sayens in the 1930s, but their relationship was unraveling by the early 40s. His rising fame, long absences on set, and a reputation for being very social with his female co-stars strained the marriage. Those tensions would shadow him through the decade, but they also fed into his on-screen image of a restless, complicated man. By the early 1940s, America was on the edge of World War II. Hollywood shifted overnight, pumping out patriotic films to rally the nation. Wayne's rugged masculinity made him a perfect fit. He starred in The Spoilers and in Old California, films that blended Western tropes with wartime energy. On screen, Wayne became America's soldier cowboy, the man who could defend the frontier and symbolize national pride. But here's the controversy. While many leading men of his generation enlisted, Jimmy Stewart, Henry Fonda, Clark Gable, Wayne did not. Instead, Wayne stayed in Hollywood, working relentlessly. Republic Pictures, his studio, had no intention of letting their rising star walk away to war. They argued his films were boosting morale, but Wayne himself later admitted he felt torn. Letters surfaced where he expressed guilt about not enlisting, and director John Ford never let him forget it. Ford would needle Wayne about it for years, even humiliating him on set by calling him a coward in front of crew members. Audiences at the time didn't know all this. To them, Wayne was a patriotic figure, but behind the screen, the decision haunted him, and it shaped the intensity of his wartime and post-war roles. By 1943, Wayne had become a symbol of rugged American masculinity. In An Old Oklahoma, also known as War of the Wildcats, he played Jim Gardner, a cowboy drawn into the oil business, a man of action but also conviction. The role expanded his image beyond the saddle, into someone who could fight for justice in new arenas. Then came Tall in the Saddle, 1944, where Wayne perfected the strong, silent archetype. As a wandering cowboy wrapped in a murder mystery, he dominated the screen with stillness, confidence, and authority. Critics began noticing how he could control a scene with just a glare or a pause. And in Dakota, 1945, Wayne portrayed John Devlin, a gambler turned pioneer leading settlers through land disputes. Here Wayne wasn't just the action hero. He was becoming the moral compass of the American West. Behind the camera, Wayne was also asserting more authority. He was no longer just taking assignments, he was pushing for stronger roles, better scripts, and higher production values. He wanted to escape Republic's B-movie limitations, and the mid-1940s were his proving ground. In 1946, Wayne starred in Angel and the Bad Man, a film that revealed something new: tenderness. As Quirt Evans, a wounded outlaw, nursed back to health by a Quaker woman, played by Gail Russell, Wayne balanced grit with vulnerability. The romance wasn't a side plot, it was the heart of the movie. Could a violent man choose peace? Could Wayne's cowboy archetype evolve into someone capable of love and sacrifice? Audiences loved it. The film was a box office hit, and it showed Wayne could play softer emotions without losing his edge. Off-screen, rumors swirled that Wayne and co-star Gail Russell developed a close bond during filming. Nothing was ever proven, but the whispers added a layer of intrigue that only boosted the film's romantic aura. For Wayne, this was more than a role. It was proof he could expand his persona. He wasn't just the tough cowboy. He could be the man caught between violence and tenderness, a conflict that resonated deeply in post-war America. By the late 1940s, Wayne had transitioned from star to powerhouse. The films of 1948 and 1949 didn't just elevate his career, they cemented his place in film history. Red River, 1948, directed by Howard Hawks. This was one of Wayne's most complex performances. As Thomas Dunson, a ruthless cattle baron, Wayne wasn't the noble hero. He was harsh, domineering, even cruel. It shocked critics, who had dismissed him as wooden. Suddenly, they saw depth, menace, and tragedy. Red River proved Wayne could play layered characters, not just archetypes. Fort Apache, 1948, directed by John Ford. This was the first of his famous cavalry trilogy. Wayne played Captain Kirby York, clashing with Henry Fonda's arrogant commander. The film showcased Wayne's quiet strength, his ability to embody the wisdom of the frontier against blind authority. Three Godfathers, 1948, a unique mix of Western and biblical allegory. Wayne played one of three outlaws who find redemption caring for an orphan baby. The role allowed Wayne to balance ruggedness with humanity, reinforcing his ability to play men torn between sin and salvation. She Wore a Yellow Ribbon, 1949, perhaps Wayne's most praised performance of the decade. Playing aging cavalry officer Nathan Brittles, Wayne convincingly embodied a weary leader on the verge of retirement. With makeup and gray hair, he carried himself with gravitas and vulnerability, earning critical acclaim and solidifying his dramatic chops. By the end of the decade, Wayne wasn't just a cowboy star, he was a serious actor. Wayne ended the decade with The Fighting Kentuckian, a frontier story mixing romance, land disputes, and national pride. It wasn't his most iconic role, but it proved something important. No matter the setting, audiences saw him as the cowboy. Whether on cattle drives, cavalry posts, or frontier towns, Wayne wasn't just playing characters anymore. He was embodying the myth of America itself, tough, flawed, but enduring. The 1940s transformed John Wayne. He entered the decade still climbing out of the B-movie trenches. By its end, he was one of Hollywood's most bankable stars, working with directors like Howard Hawks and John Ford, delivering performances that silenced his critics, and shaping an image that would define masculinity for generations. But it wasn't a clean rise. Behind the camera, Wayne wrestled with guilt over not enlisting, pressure from studios, and messy personal relationships. Those contradictions, strength and doubt, swagger and vulnerability, made him more than a screen hero. They made him human. Audiences no longer just watched John Wayne. They believed in him, and the best was yet to come. Because in the 1950s, Wayne would enter his golden era, starring in Rio Grande, Hondo, and perhaps his greatest masterpiece, The Searchers. Make sure you're subscribed, because in Part 3, we'll explore how John Wayne turned the 1950s into his ultimate decade, and how those westerns built the enduring myth of the Duke.